Well, probably many of you are familiar with the issues and the reasons that got me thinking about growing food on vacant lots. I sit in a lot of public meetings, and probably some of you do too, where you hear the mayor or the people in our city talk about the issues of vacant property and all the different things we can be doing in our city with vacant property. And so my coworker at Breaking New Grounds was Peter Dion. We worked together for 2 years, and when Breaking New Grounds folded in January or February, we worked well together, we enjoyed working together, and we wanted to do something else after that. So we started thinking about, what needs to be done in our local food system and urban agriculture that nobody's doing yet that we could, maybe make a contribution to. So we got the idea to plant food on vacant lots and started looking around about how would be the best way to do that. Did we turn on the light thing?
Yep. I thought I'd messed with it.
So I do want to give a shout out to Peter, who can't be here. He's such a hard-working dude that he's working 2 jobs probably all the time. He used to work for UofL though, and so if you all walk down the street just down Preston, a couple blocks from here, you'll see their not so new campus anymore and the big garden space that they have next to the building at UofL. He was working as their garden manager person at UofL when that space was getting established, so he's the one who really built that out into garden beds and planted some of the fruit trees and things like that when he was there. So he's a person without whom I wouldn't be undertaking this, and I want to give him a shout out even though he's not here. So the city has now put a lot more attention into the question of vacant and abandoned properties. There is a website called VAPStat, Vacant and Abandoned Property Statistics or something, and it really is a clearinghouse of information about vacant properties and the initiatives that the city is taking to address the problem. So you can get a lot of data there, you can get a lot of information about programs and foreclosure assistance and all these things. They have on there a map where you can show, or you can see it if you drill down, actually you can see more detail. But this is just an overview of where there are vacant lots in our city. And a lot of them are in the Portland neighborhood. There are, almost, a lot of neighborhoods in the urban core have vacant properties that are registered, that are officially considered vacant or abandoned. But we looked at a lot of lots in Portland because that's where a lot of them are.
Before you go forward, could you, just to orient folks in this room who may not be as familiar with Louisville's map, could you show about where we are?
We are downtown right about here. Is that right, or are we this side?
I think it might be this side.
This side of 65?
No, yeah.
This
side.
Right.
There you go.
Yeah. So this is the Health Sciences campus.
Okay.
This is sort of the downtown core.
Okay.
And so there are vacant lots all over the place. You guys see them every day, I'm sure. And another resource that's available on this website is the list of properties that are owned by the land bank. The land bank is an entity that was set up about 20 years ago for the purpose of holding properties that the city obtains through tax liens, foreclosures, and different unfortunate circumstances. And the idea in the land bank is to hold the properties, forgive the debts or liens in such a way that those properties can then be made available again for people for redevelopment at a nominal cost or low cost. And so, or for nonprofits actually for free. Habitat for Humanity gets a lot of these lots for free to go on. So this is the inventory of the properties that are owned by the land bank. It is actually 11 pages long. And these are a lot of West Louisville neighborhoods that are represented in the land bank properties. That's where a lot of our abandoned properties are. So we looked at 11 pages of this back in February and looked at where are there clusters of lots, where are there areas that we thought looked promising, and we actually rode our bikes around and drove around and looked at a lot of lots. And we actually went out there with our little shovels and looked and see, a lot of them have gravel or foundations of houses and things like that. So through that little investigation process over the course of a couple weeks, we settled on a cluster of 5 lots that are in the Portland neighborhood. This is where they are. It's at the intersection where 17th Street intersects Portland Avenue with a T intersection, and it's 5 lots together, 2 that face on Portland Avenue, and then 3 that face behind it onto the alley, basically. So we looked at the soil, we looked at the neighborhood, we looked at about the amount of space that we wanted and the kind of space that it is, and we thought this would be a good space for growing food on. So we wrote a letter to the land bank according to the protocol that is described on their website, and made some phone calls to them ahead of time and said, hey, we want to write you a letter, request property, what do we do? And they said, write us a letter, and blah, blah, blah. So we did that, just what they said, boop, 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 boop. And the parcel ID numbers, we offered them $10 per parcel. Because all they said was, make us an offer. Okay, we'll make you an offer. Okay, so these are the 5 lots. This is 1645 and 1647 Portland Avenue. There are 2 like residential / commercial buildings on either side, and then there's really no houses anywhere around. There's a house right in the back through there. The whole dimensions of it about 66 feet across and about 200 feet all the way back to the alley, which is about 1/3 of an acre. It looks like it'll be bigger than 1/3 of an acre, but it didn't math yesterday. It said it was 1/3 of an acre. So there are some trees here in the middle, which make some shade. We're happy about that because we want to grow some things that would do well in shade, some different berries and herbs that like a little bit of shade. And also, if we're going to sit down after we're done working, it's nice to have some shade to sit underneath. And there are mulberry trees, actually, so they make delicious fruit. And I went there in May and picked some mulberries off those trees. So it's a variety of different kind of environments there. This is the back where it's very open, and we'd like to do some orchard trees in the back part. I've been in touch with the neighbors next door, and they said, yes, you can collect water off our roof. We don't have a problem with that. We sketched out a little bit what we want to do. Like I said, herbs and berries under the tree. In the front here along the sidewalk, we're thinking about flowers, maybe some sort of like living fence that doesn't encourage people to walk into the lot, but offers some berries that people can pick and share. Some space for a tool shed, space for a driveway to drive compost in and out, and some space for water storage. Yes, we did test the soil. The results were perfectly good. You can't read that, but it says the soil level in this, the lead level in this soil is low. This is our report from the University of Massachusetts, where our extension service sends samples off to be tested for lead. Some of you have probably done that for your own gardens. And it also tells you all the other nutrients, so you can see phosphorus is very high, potassium is pretty high, calcium is very high, and so on. And so depending on what you want to plant, you might actually look at some of this and say, okay, I'd like to plant peanuts, or I'd like to plant strawberries there, and that would be good for those different kinds of crops.
And is there a fee that cooperative extension
Normally the
charges you?
fee is $12 to send off a sample for lead. Right now they have a special grant that they're actually able to do them for free. I don't know how long that goes or how long the money's going to last, but our cooperative extension is now testing the soil for free for people.
Wow.
So that's a great service if you have a vacant lot that you'd like to test the soil in or your backyard, where you think there would be a risk of contamination of the
And
soil.
about how much do you send? Do you have to pull from different areas? Like,
Yeah, there's actually on their website there are good instructions. There's a little fact sheet about how to do a soil sample. You have to do 5 or 10 different holes from all over the yard down 3 to 6 inches. Then you mix it all together and you put it in a bag and you bring it over there. So it's pretty easy. Okay, so other research and preparations that we did while the land bank has been considering our request. We did investigate the ownership history and the land use of the lots. Obviously, with city lots, sometimes you don't know what might have been there. These look like they were residential properties all the way back to, as far as we can find the records for, but it's good to know that. We also talked to a historian at the Portland Museum who was very helpful, and I wanted to know, did they know anything about those particular lots, or did they remember anything? And he was really nice and said, oh, everybody used to have backyard gardens. And we don't anymore. So that was interesting to just talk to them. We had a soil scientist from our NRCS service, which is an office of the USDA. We share an office, I think, with them in Shelbyville. And he came out in February on a freezing cold day and brought his little soil auger and took some nice soil samples out. And you could see the depth down to like this. And he said, oh, it's pretty compacted over here, or it looks okay over here. Maybe you want to put some cover crops on to decompact it. But otherwise, it looks pretty good. So that was really nice. Froze doing that for me, but that was really nice. We've been talking to neighbors, meeting the neighbors all around, telling them what we want to do, and finding out if people have any concerns, which they don't seem to. So that's been a good process. And also talk to allies and people that we know across the community and telling them, we're trying to do this. Everybody's been talking about it for years, ever since we've been talking about vacant abandoned property. We're trying to do what everybody else is talking about. We're trying to grow the food on the vacant lots. And everybody says, that's great, you should go to you. I hope that works. So we're getting a lot of support, and certainly a lot of metro offices across city government are supportive of it. For the land bank, this is a new thing. Nobody has ever requested property from them for the purpose of growing food. They think about only you get a lot, you might build a building, and it's that kind of development that they think about, not about maybe other ways that you can improve a neighborhood with, redeveloping a vacant lot. So, meanwhile, we're not stupid. We're also looking elsewhere. And so I've been looking around my own, bicycle radius, and here's a lot that I found adjacent to a small business on East Muhammad Ali, and the owner owns not this whole area, but 2 of the lots. And he was really nice. He said, I'm just mowing it, you can do something else on it if you want to. So I had that soil tested and it was fine. And so I found a couple other neighbors who live nearby, and they said, sure, we'll plant some stuff there with you. And so we brought some compost, and we started digging it up, and brought a barrel for catching water. And so we started that just small, and this is what it looks like now. We just put some beans and okra and tomatoes in there. And I wanted to just have something in place that we could say, we are working on vacant lots growing food. There's something that's happening already, even though it's temporary.
Is that good sod, or are you taking the grass up and
That's an excellent
putting
question.
it somewhere else?
Yeah, we thought about that quite a bit, because that's sort of the major labor challenge if you're thinking about turning it over into food production. What I have decided is, I think, the best strategy. So for most of this, what we did was we just took a hoe or a shovel and we cleared out little patches about this big, and just cleared the grass out. And we did those, a couple feet apart in a little pattern. And then on top of that, I found cardboard from a moving company that was mattress boxes. And I put them on my bike trailer, and I hauled them over there and laid them down like 2 or 3 sheets thick. And then we put wood chips on top of it. And then I poked holes where those holes were cut out and put the seeds in. And that has worked great.
Wow.
You don't have to weed. You don't have to worry about clearing the whole area out. You don't have to struggle with one of these gigantic, heavy, sod stripper or tiller machines. And there's almost no fossil fuels involved in doing it. Very, very low labor. And so I would really recommend that. I'm definitely going to do it again when we get our lot. And I've heard other people doing something similar, where they might take a sod stripper, which is just what it sounds like. It's a machine that you walk behind, and it cuts and rips the sod up at the surface. That you could do that in a row and just leave the grass in between, cover that with cardboard, and then come back and do the sod stripper just like a little strip, like 8 or 12 inches wide, if you want a row for something, instead of holes, individuals, so that you don't have to actually tear the whole area up. It's less work.
I was envisioning all that sod being removed and then having this empty, bare dirt.
Right. I'm not a big fan of bare dirt.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of keeping the soil covered. I'm a big fan of using mulch. I'm a big fan of, this is called sheet mulching. If you cover like that and just pile a bunch of wood chips and stuff on top of it to kill what's underneath, that's what they call sheet mulching. So that has worked really well. That's it. So,
I have a question.
yes.
What do you do with the produce?
Well, so the way we're thinking about it, once we can scale this up to get, land that we own, we're thinking about it the way I think about a family farm, a modern family farm. We will eat some of it that we grow. We'll sell some of it, whatever we have extra to sell. And we're going to keep jobs and work a job so we have paychecks. We're not thinking about this as a way to sustain ourselves, and maintain a household. But just because we live in the city, we don't have family farms, but there's no reason we can't have a third of an acre somewhere that we treat the way people have always treated a family farm.
Sure.
So that's how we're thinking about it. And so that's why we're thinking of forming it as an LLC, as a business instead of a nonprofit. It just makes more intuitive sense to me that you own it, you work it yourself. There are certainly other models that could be used. There are nonprofit organizations that are doing work that's related to this that could certainly
So you hope maybe it'll encourage the neighbors around to, offer $10 for a parcel and come up and.
I would love it.
Yeah.
I would love it. What we want in doing this, and I should have said this at the beginning, part of the reason that we are undertaking this process is so that connections can be made among the different agencies of city government, that process is put in place, so that the next person who gets the idea or grabs the idea and wants to do it, so that somebody else has done it before, so that we've already worked out, like, what do you do now, what do you do now? We can post it on our website. This is the process, this is how much it costs for the different legal fees and things along the way. These are the obstacles that you're going to have to overcome. These are the things you want to check, make sure your zoning is okay, make sure X, Y, Z. So we're undertaking it with the attitude of learning and patience and knowing that it's not necessarily going to be smooth or easy or fast the first time, but I feel really strongly that it's time to stop talking about growing food on vacant lots and make sure that really we're connecting, to actually make it happen.
When will you hear about your $10 a lot?
Well, so there was a meeting in July where it was on the agenda, and we were told they were making a decision in July. And then, long story short, they didn't make a decision; they put it off. The next meeting, they're supposed to meet every month. The next meeting is August 22nd at 2 p.m. And I will be there. And we are having neighbors write letters of support. We're having allies write letters of support to them in case they're not persuaded that this is a good idea. We're fleshing out our business plan a little bit more so that we look serious and they can see what investments we're prepared to make and what production we intend to see over the next year or so with it and how that's going to roll out. And we've done our homework. So we're hopeful that if we show up there in August and people are in the room who are supposed to be in the room, that they will do their job and offer it to us. Because the land bank really is, they say, they're trying to get rid of parcels. The average amount of time that a parcel has been in the land bank is 20 years.
Oh my God.
It's
Seriously.
like more than 200 months. Almost 20 years. So yeah, that's not quite doing what the land bank is supposed to be doing, right? There's been a renewed awareness that this agency or that entity isn't working the way it's supposed to. We need to make sure
Do they
that
ever get rid of any of the land?
very small numbers of parcels. I think a lot of people aren't aware that it's there.
Sure.
There are developers who get parcels from the land bank. There's no accountability, there's no mechanism to make sure that the developers who say they're going to develop something actually do it. And so some of those get into private ownership, but then they just still sit vacant. That's not what it's all about. So there's a lot of things that aren't working right, and there's a renewed awareness of what some of the shortcomings have been. Nashville apparently has a good process in place where their extension offices work with the land bank to help transfer parcels to people who want to grow gardens and grow food. And so there are people who are finding solutions to this and doing it. We're just, behind. But I'm hoping that, somebody has to be the first one. Somebody has to try it and make it happen. So hopefully we'll get it done.
Is part of your messaging at all around sort of the intersection of built environment and public health? That how is this going to, like we were saying, improving the neighborhood?
Right.
Have you all are you finding that conversation is helpful in dealing with this land?
Right. I mean, myself personally, I do think about all these issues as being interconnected. That the environmental quality and the quality of life and the quality of neighborhoods is all related to questions of health and well-being, mental well-being and physical well-being. I'm not sure those arguments necessarily going to hold up sway with the land bank, who think a lot more in cash dollars. But there is a lot of good evidence showing that green spaces and gardens raise property values. There's good evidence about the effects that gardens and open spaces have on people's mental well-being. And if we really want to redevelop a neighborhood and improve a neighborhood, it's more than just building buildings. There's a lot that has to happen, to raise property values. It doesn't just happen by itself. It happens because people put investment, they put money, they put love, they put time, and they put work into land And, yeah, there are sort of all these little things that are woven together with that.
Well, and one of the arguments, for an area, like Portland, where they're, I don't know, how close is that lot to the big Kroger? I mean, if you said
Not
17th,
close.
it's right,
Not
it's across
close.
many blocks away.
Yeah.
So, we talk a lot about access points and how easy is it to get fresh,
Yeah,
local
Yeah.
food,
yeah,
and the economic barriers, and that realizing the benefits of planting and,
right. Having a
growing.
backyard garden.
Right,
Yeah.
and you were talking about how the historian was saying, this was a tradition and people have gone away from that, and
Yeah.
what is that? So,
Yeah.
I definitely think there's room for that conversation to have. I mean, it's the same
Yeah.
thing, like documented, if we're going to do something about obesity, healthy eating is,
Right.
or as we do something about obesity, healthy
Right.
eating is a major component, and giving access is
Right.
needed.
And just planting the idea with people who aren't used to seeing
Right.
food planted in their neighborhoods, that yes, you can put a fruit tree in your yard.
Right,
And
yes,
yes,
you can
you
eat
can
this.
put some berries at your
Yeah.
fence line. And yes, even if you rent your house, there's things that you can plant.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a process, but I mean, I hope that already by trying to meet neighbors and make those connections, the more friends you have, the more allies you have in your neighborhood, the more that word, you get out. So
If your $10 a parcel comes off and word gets out,
I
how
should
affordable is that
right.
for people?
Right, I should hope that it would be appealing to a lot of people to be able to do that. I mean, there's water, there's other expenses, of course, in setting up a garden. But, right, we want to make the point that it should be accessible and it should be affordable for people to do that, and there should be a mechanism that might help us address our vacant lot problem at the same time.
Thank you so much.
So are you also looking at lots that have abandoned buildings or buildings that need to come down?
We aren't.
Okay.
There are so many that are just empty and open that we're not looking at lots of buildings.
Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.